Spring Ponds makes up 530 hectares of an overall management of properties of 2,500 hectares. We run 800 hectares at Kerma and another 1,150 hectares at just 20 k's down the road from here. Spring Ponds is made up of, we join around the 700 to 800 ewes, so we can replace wethers on the lease block further down the road. And Kerma is very similar, where we join 12 to 1,300 ewes just to top up our wether portion of the lease block. But this being our base, this is our major focus at the moment.
Spring Ponds has been in the family for over 100 years. My great-grandfather came out from Ireland and purchased Spring Ponds along with a number of other properties in the Goulburn region, and it's wonderful that 100 years on, our little son Digby is the 6th generation here.
Skye and David are aware of sustainability issues, but don't know very much about the carbon farming projects.
So while we are very focused on production and ensuring that we have a viable operation, we're very mindful of ensuring that we run our livestock sustainably and in a way that we're not taking too much from the land, because we do see ourselves as a custodian rather than someone that's just here, to get as much out of it as we can. I don't think there's a lot of accessible information out there about the carbon farming. I think most farmers do think with an environmental mindset. I think as well some farmers may, even though we account for I think 15% of Australia's total emissions, they might see their own enterprise as such a small parcel of total emissions as well, so they might look at the different scenarios of reducing their carbon footprint and what that means for production and wonder whether it actually is worth it.
Spring Ponds' greenhouse gas emissions output is estimated to be around 360 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent each year, and this output includes different types of emissions from different agricultural sources. The major type of greenhouse gas emissions from Spring Ponds is enteric methane from livestock belching, and the major source is the sheep flock. The Australian Farm Institute worked with the Wards in modelling some hypothetical greenhouse gas emission scenarios. One suggested scenario increases lamb production and selling the sheep earlier, or moving wethers to another farm earlier.
We've got to increase our lambing percentage anyway. Like here, because the country is all native and it's lighter country, our lambings haven't been great. Just to be able to trade wethers off here rather than buy in from the market is a much better option for us. We sort of wean our merinos from sort of around that 12-week mark anyway. So I think, and if we can offload some lambs a bit early to our lease block or the wether portion, or reduce sheep on this place alone, for a period of time that'll make a difference to the emissions, I think we would do that, like we would go down that track. It's very achievable, that scenario, yeah.
The modelling also includes a scenario that involves a carbon sequestration project where a portion of grazing land is planted to trees.
We've just recently fenced off the creek, and with the erosion problem along that creek, I think it's in our own interest to plant trees to keep it all, hold it all together anyway. And if we can tie the emissions trading or some sort of scheme back into that, I think we can really go forward with it.
The only thing that we're concerned about is the fact that they need to be there for 100 years, and we just find it difficult to commit to something that's not going to be around. We're not going to be around to see in 100 years and be committing to something on behalf of, maybe not even our children's generation, but our grandchildren's generation. But definitely we think in that mindset of, we do see that we have a part to play in reducing our carbon emissions and living as sustainably as possible. And looking at the scenarios, we felt that tree planting was the most, had the biggest impact and was probably the most achievable. But in saying that, there would need to be some sort of assistance in terms of planting the number of trees that would be required to make a real difference.
Skye and David clearly understand the advantages of trees and carbon sequestration, combined with other environment co-benefits such as biodiversity and erosion control. They and other farmers who share their concerns might look at carbon sequestration projects in the future that provide flexibility, such as 25-year permanence obligations, and incur discount rates in carbon markets due to the shorter permanence period. Now that Skye and David know more about the carbon farming projects, do they think they will start looking at ways to get involved?
It's been great. It's put carbon farming more at the front of our minds. was something that's sort of been in the background, and we realised that, you know, that's the future of farming, that it's going to form a bigger part of what we do down the track, that we're not going to probably be traditional farmers, you know, in 30 years' time.
The carbon farming videos have been produced by the Australian Farm Institute and supported by funding from the Australian Government.